everybody knew it, and you were like, well, finally, we've got some sanctified people.
Yeah,
in here.
we do. I guess it's Me TV. Don't they carry?
Well,
I don't have live TV anymore. We gave that up years ago. So I don't know what's on, but I think Me TV
maybe
has
Well,
it.
they got it on YouTube. I actually
Do they?
searched it. Yeah, I searched it while I was sitting in my office during the first time you gave the message. And I'm like, is this online? So I did that to tell you that if you don't know the Beverly Hillbillies, you can watch an 18-episode marathon of the first season right now. It's commercial free. It'll only take you 7 hours and like 37 minutes. So now you know what you're doing for the rest of the day, Michael Knipp. I know you're not actually working. You say you work from home, whatever. I know you're watching YouTube.
Well, I can remember my folks, and I can remember especially my sister yesterday with my oldest sister. It was her birthday, and I called and talked to her. She can only answer in one word.
Right.
She has dementia.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, but I can remember her laughing at that, and I thought to myself, this is funny because this is the way we grew up. Not in a mansion, but so,
out in the sticks.
hillbilly.
Yeah.
And everybody talked like that, and everybody.
Well, that's why it was so
And I thought it
relatable
was
for so
funny
many
for my
people.
family to laugh at it, but you'd better never call them hillbillies.
Yeah, that's personal. You just made it personal, Bub.
Oh, golly.
Well, I got to ask, before we get into the message, I got to ask you, how's your NCAA bracket doing? Have you looked at it at all?
No, I don't. I don't do that. Furman beat Virginia.
Now-
Woo, go Paladins.
Now, did you get
But
a
then
degree
they
there?
got
Or was that, you
blown
went to
out.
North Greenville.
Well, I went there for the first 2 years, and then I went and finished
Oh,
at Furman.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
The Paladins. People don't even know what a Paladin is.
It's a night.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, because I looked it up on Google. But most people, they're not as
Yeah.
cultured as I am. I haven't looked at the bracket either, although Joanna came, I made one, but
I'm
Joanna came by.
stunned. There's not an
gloat.
ACC team left in there.
Clemson, did they not make it this
Nope.
year?
Nope. There's
What a
not. I
shame.
mean,
Poor
Duke's
Clemson.
not in there, right?
Yeah, Duke got eliminated, and I had Duke picked.
North
That was-
Carolina's not in there. Furman beat Virginia. There's not an ACC team left in there, which
What a
has
shame.
got to be the first time in the history of basketball. But the SEC, of course,
What are you gonna
Auburn
do?
got beat the other night.
It just means more, is
Yeah.
what they say for the SEC.
Yeah.
Sorry, that I saw that one time when I had live TV. It just means more. What was I going to say about? Oh yeah, my beloved Maryland Terrapins. I was so torn the other night because Alabama was that Saturday night. Nobody knows. Where's Jared? He actually
Yeah,
watches
Maryland-
sports. Did Jared
Maryland's
leave for
ACC
Israel
too.
already?
No.
Maryland.
Or maybe.
I thought Maryland
No,
was the
no,
Big
no.
10 or the Big 12. I can't remember. I don't know.
No.
They're in the ACC.
Yeah.
I don't know. I jokingly called them my beloved Terrapins. I actually don't know too much about them. But I did grow up in Maryland, so I was like, wow, I've got Alabama right here. I've got Maryland. So I watched the game for about 5 minutes, and then
Alabama
Turn it
blew them
off.
out.
I think so. Do you guys know? Nobody knows. They're not even paying attention to
Alabama
us
won
anymore.
their last game.
Yeah.
Alabama
Alabama
won.
still
I
won.
have no idea what the score was. We should get to something we probably know a little bit more about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, a
we-
little bit more.
Now,
Maybe.
I'll go. You said that listen. We talk too much about the Beverly Hillbillies, but that analogy was perfect because you have Granny.
Uh-huh.
They build her an old house
A cabin.
because
A
she
log
doesn't want to.
cabin.
She doesn't want to enjoy the
No,
riches.
she doesn't want to. No.
And there you go. There's Israel out in the wilderness. They don't want to enjoy the riches of their relationship with the Lord. They just want the pots of meat.
Yeah.
Back in
Yeah.
Egypt.
Yeah. They just had tons and tons of, beef and steak and all of that. It's just amazing to me how we so embellish days gone by.
You said.
When we griped through those days.
I think that was one of the most pertinent. I wish I could remember the exact wording, but you just said when we're grumbling, we never get the story right.
No, we don't. We always exacerbate it. We blow it up bigger than what it is. We never get the sources right. We never get the wording right. We don't ever get anything right. When you're grumbling, you just take it and you just blow it up into this massive issue that it's not.
I didn't understand this when I was younger, especially like with any kind of pastoral counseling or anything. Someone comes to you grumbling, you want to help them, and you don't realize, wait, the way they're grumbling, this probably isn't the whole story.
Oh, no. You know, it's not, and most of it in the church doesn't really even deal with the church. It really is something else outside of the church, but the church becomes the convenient place to unleash it.
Very, very wise words. So the thing that they're going through, that they're grumbling about, this is one thing I wanted for us to try to talk about, even though it's really difficult, is this test that they're going through out there in the wilderness. And I wanted you to say again, to make clear that, like, how God allowing them to go through a test that He's sovereign over, but like how the bad events or the bad things that are happening are not directly from God. And you used a great example in our church with the Veal family and that testimony.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I cried in both services. But I thought we could chat about that a little bit.
Sure.
Just since I know that you've completely solved the whole thing of God's sovereignty and then man's responsibility, and I thought since you've completely solved that you could tell everybody.
I do agree with Spurgeon. The sovereignty of God is one rail, and the free will of man is the second rail, and they run parallel on out into eternity. And Spurgeon says we'll never solve that here, and I think he's exactly right.
He is exactly right. I was just setting you up.
I have no idea how that all works out, and neither do all these other folks that claim that they do.
Well, and neither did the Israelites.
No, they didn't.
But they were claiming, no, we don't have any responsibility. This is all on you, God. You need to help us.
They didn't name God specifically. They did it to Moses and Aaron, but Moses and Aaron come back and say, who are we, guys? Now, honestly, we're out here walking with you guys. We didn't lead ourselves out here to starve or to thirst to death. We're following the Lord. Your grumblings are not against us, but against the Lord.
That was such a key point.
Moses says it right there.
Yep.
Chapter 16 of Exodus, verse 8.
You contrasted that with how so often we do good things. The words of Christ in the New Testament, as often you've done to the least of these, you've done unto me. Even someone giving a cup of cool water, you've done in my name.
We love that. We'll accept that being Christ there, that what we're doing is for Christ there when we're really doing it for somebody else, because Christ says that, if you've done it to the least of these. But when you get back here to where he says, grumbling against Moses, you're really grumbling against God.
That's a
No, we're not doing that.
That's a really big deal, and that again, you can let Scripture interpret Scripture. What's that one key phrase in Psalm 51? David writes, "Against you and you only
That's
have
exactly
I sinned."
right. That's
he
right.
understands that principle, that when we sin, it's against God.
That's right.
There's other people involved.
Yep.
But that is
ultimately it is against God. Yeah. So when the church is imperfect. You're never going to find a perfect church. You're never going to find a perfect pastor. No pastor is ever going to find a perfect congregation. It goes both ways. So to grumble about it, that really is useless. The thing to do is get in there and work. Get in there and do what you're called to do.
Well, and what a pertinent message that is for us on, because we just had our big serve day 2 days ago. Everybody's out there, and we don't, so often, we don't know the impact of these actions that we're taking in the long term. We can see that, this window's clean, or this floor is vacuumed, or this, we've done this demolition work, whatever. You can see that, but like how that works out in the long term with us serving the community, we don't know. At least that's what I'm hearing when you say we just need to get to work.
Yep.
Quit grumbling and get to work.
That's right.
Because what good did the grumbling do the Israelites?
It didn't. The amazing thing to me in all of this was the patience and the grace, the mercy, the long-suffering, the tenderness of God in it all.
Amen to that. Well, he gives them everything that they need. You spent a long time talking about the gift of the manna and how the people did, and I guess this is getting closer to the end of the message. You talked about how the people just didn't listen to God's instruction for the manna. God is showing up with groceries every single day, and they're still mad because it's not coming at the schedule that they want, which is
Well,
completely absurd.
they never listened to him about it. You know, he says, hey, I'm going to rain down this bread from heaven, and I get over to that. And you get over here, you know, verse 19, Moses said to them, let no man leave any of it until morning. Don't take more than what you need.
Right.
You know, take all that you need, eat all that you take. Boy, that's what my daddy would always say. Take all that you want, but you're going to eat all that you take.
Right, don't waste
That's what, it's exactly, I guess he got it from Moses. Anyway, Moses said, don't leave any of it till tomorrow. And they did not listen to Moses. You see that?
Yeah,
Verse
I'm
20?
looking at it, yep.
And some left part of it until morning, and it bred worms. Well, the whole concept was, I'm going to, you know, I don't know that God's going to do this again tomorrow morning. We can count it. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to get extra and put up until tomorrow. Well, they get up the next morning. God has done it again.
Yeah.
And all that they had saved, thinking God wouldn't do it again, has turned to maggots.
Man, that's one of those times where I read that, I'm like, I absolutely would have been that person. I would have tried to store it up, been like, man, this is a miracle. I don't know if I can trust that this is going to happen again.
Yeah. And then they come down and they do the opposite the other way. You know, when he says, okay, 6 days you'll gather it. On the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none. So go out there, you know, the day before, on Friday morning, go out there, get enough for the 2 days,
Right.
Friday and the Sabbath. God will not turn it into worms.
They didn't listen there
And
either.
they didn't listen to that.
They ended up
So
fasting on the Sabbath.
so they went out there and there was none. And I love this. The Lord said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? I mean, how do we have to keep going through this over and over and over again? Moses goes out and tells them, you know, he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day, remain every man in his place. And that, you know, just get enough.
It seems so simple to us. But like I was just saying a minute ago, and we have to remember this, if we were there, we would have been part of the people that
Sure,
were
we
sinning.
would have. We would have done the exact same thing. That's like all of those who say, oh, well, if I was there that day when they cried out to crucify Christ, I wouldn't have done. Well, sure you would have.
You absolutely would have.
It's my sin that put him on the cross to begin with.
So that's the mindset. I know that that's what I'm trying to have. I pray the congregation has the same mindset as they approach this text, because that's what leads to the best application in your life. If you're like, well, the God, you know, thinking about all the ways today that the Lord has provided for me.
Yeah.
Well, if I have some kind of a I guess you could say, you know, financially or health or whatever, if there's some kind of a setback and tomorrow is uncertain, am I going to trust him for tomorrow, or am I not going to? He's provided for me over and over in the past. But you wisely made a distinction there yesterday, like that the mansion and Granny's house and what the Lord provides, and that, like, this is not a health and wealth kind of thing. And that's why you related it to Jesus, in the Lord's Prayer, when he says, give us this day our daily bread.
Yeah. And of course, when Jesus says too, which is a verse that a lot of people have memorized because they worry about tomorrow.
Right.
You know, don't worry about tomorrow.
It'll worry about itself.
It'll take care of itself.
Right.
Today has enough issues of its own, you know. Life is, what is that old saying? By the yard, life is hard, but by the inch, it's a cinch, you know. Just take it a step at a time, which is really what God was trying to teach these Hebrews. Just take it today, you know. Trust me for tomorrow. Watch what I do for you today and trust me for tomorrow. That is, you talking about this being simple instruction. It is simple instruction. We're the ones who make it so difficult and hard. And God's just trying to say, every morning you wake up, my mercies are new. You can trust me. You can depend on me.
This is such a concrete illustration of that, you know, in the song, you know, mercies are, well, no, that's actually in Lamentations, steadfast love, Lord never cease. So but you've got these different pieces of poetry talking about the steadfast love, Lord never ceases. His mercies are new every morning. This is a concrete example of that.
You see, the interesting thing, look here at this, next to the last verse 35 of this, because this is 6 weeks after they come out of Egypt. 6 weeks. And they are crying because they don't have food.
Yeah.
God gives them manna. They're not following. They're grabbing more of it than they need and trying to save it because we don't know if it's going to happen. Look at what it says. The sons of Israel ate manna for 40 years.
40 years.
Every single morning for 40 years, God did this. Now, they didn't know right here. They didn't know this was 6 weeks into the 40 years. And I'm wondering, can I trust God? You get to the end of the 40 years and you look back and say, well, doggone, he did it every single morning for 40 years.
And the even worse thing is, when that 40 years is over and they come into the land of milk and honey, they don't trust him to win those battles.
No.
They still don't trust him.
They are still, that's exactly right.
I guess, well, it's a little bit of a gut punch, but I wanted to say one thing before we close up, and forgive me, I didn't write down which verse it is, but when the Lord said, or when the people say, we would have rather have died in Egypt.
That's in verse 3.
You gave special attention to that.
Yeah, because it is so startling a statement. To me, that we had died by the Lord's hand, not by natural circumstances, not by Pharaoh, not by the Egyptians, but by the Lord's hand. Well, when did people die at the Lord's hand in Egypt?
It was that Passover.
It was at the Passover. So it is just
You called it.
gives you cold chills to read that statement there.
Well, because it's blasphemous. They're basically
Well,
saying.
they're basically saying we wished we had never painted the blood over the doorposts. It's almost apostasy.
Right.
If apostasy is possible, and I guess it is, I don't know. Someday it depends on which side of the bed I wake up on. Is it possible? Is it not possible? But they basically were saying we should have just been apostates. We should have just stopped believing right then and not followed the Lord's instruction, not painted the blood over the doorpost, and just died with the Egyptians that were killed.
They're forsaking their faith.
All of this because they are hungry.
Wow.
Now, I realize that hunger is probably the most primal, outside of maybe somebody trying to smother you to get oxygen. But they say that hunger is probably the strongest drive in a person's life.
That makes a lot of sense.
Jesus goes to the limit in the wilderness, 40 days. That's absolute maximum you could probably go. 40 days out in the wilderness, he doesn't eat, and he faces, the most strident, strongest drive in life that a man can have is to be at the point of death from starvation.
Right.
And it's at that moment Satan comes to tempt him. And he is able to reject those temptations. So no temptation we face will ever be as intense as that Christ faced.
Well, that's what Paul's talking about. Is it 1 Corinthians 10:13? No temptation has overcome you that is not common to man. Christ, That's man, that's such a good point, Pastor.
This temptation is too great for me. No.
It's not.
Christ went to the absolute, utter extreme of that and was able to turn away from temptation. So no temptation that you face would ever compare. Plus, he was perfect and sinless. And sin would have a greater pull on him than it does on me. It takes very little for me to sin.
Right. We're desensitized to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes very little. I've got a sin nature. It's my nature to sin. So, get off my back, man. It's my nature.
Is that what you tell your wife?
No, that's what you just say. You say that to you say, it's my nature to sin. Well, yeah, it is. It really is. But he faced it, and his nature was pure, perfect. Greater pull on him than it is on us.
And that's why we study the Old Testament. It just makes us appreciate the wonder of Christ even more.
All the more.
Well,
We will see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're praying for you as you travel to Israel.
Israel, yeah.
And
Israel,
any other parting words? Nothing?
Parting words.
Oh, that was good. All right, say goodbye, Pastor.
Goodbye, Pastor.